Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Chris and Andre Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Chris and Andre Show. We are your hosts, as always. I'm Chris.
And I'm Andre.
And we are getting into the big rant portion of this week's content. So in this segment, we always pick a specific topic that we focus on, and we go off on a tangent. We just tear it apart, brick by brick, piece by piece, as much as we can. We rant, we rave, mostly ranting. Obviously, that's why we call it the Big Rant. But this week, we are discussing the topic on everybody's mind, except for, Fox News viewers, the January 6th committee hearings. So last week, Thursday, they had their first hearing. Some pretty interesting stuff came out of that. I think, was it Monday, they had another one. Then today, they just released their third. Total of 7 that they are planning. Liz Cheney is the sole Republican, if I'm not mistaken.
No, Adam Kinzinger.
Adam Kinzinger, that's right.
Yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, a couple of Republicans, bunch of Democrats, all because Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy wouldn't. Well, I guess it was just Kevin McCarthy wouldn't let an independent investigation or independent committee take a look at this. After Nancy Pelosi said, "Yeah, these two people can't be on that." But anyways. Some interesting things have come out so far. I mean, a lot of stuff I think we already kind of knew, right? Like, Trump incited a riot. Trump had lost the election. Trump knew he lost the election. But I will say that I have been pretty impressed just with the way that the committee has gone about presenting their information so far. I think it's been pretty well orchestrated, and them breaking it down into these kind of 7 hearings, focusing each hearing on a different aspect of it, and the way that the information's been presented. Like, starting out, the first one, obviously in prime time, I think the news...
20 million people.
Yeah, 21 million people watched. I saw Trevor Noah joking that Trump must have been really conflicted about that, because it's like, on the one hand, he doesn't want anybody to know he stole the election, but on the other hand, he always wants his ratings to be the best. And so it's like,
we're the best.
In the second one, they focused a lot on the scam that was, Trump knowing
$230 million.
Yep. And not a penny of it spent on lawyers. Well,
he actually got the RNC to pay for some of those
so then why did he need
claims.
these other people's money?
You know what? I'll let you finish your intro.
All right. And then in the most recent one today, I didn't get a chance to watch it yet. I caught a couple of the recaps, but there was a lot focused on Mike Pence and kind of his role within, the actual proceedings on January 6th, and the fact that he had been like, yeah, dude, I don't have the authority to do this, what you're asking me to do, which was to reject electors, and I'm not going to do what you're asking me to do because it's absolutely unconstitutional. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on the whole thing so far?
I think I agree with you. I believe that the presentation's great, but I have this feeling that nothing's going to come of it. And it's because I'm losing confidence in our system to actually be a government that's for the people. And we have continued to let the fringe to control the navigation of where our country goes. And that's dangerous. So I don't think anything is going to come of it. I don't think that this country has the Constitution to protect the Constitution. And it's very evident that when you had the Republicans in the House actually not vote for impeachment, what's going to change? Are we assuming the DOJ is going to find something criminal? I don't think so. And that's what kind of, it's an intellectual pursuit in my mind. I don't believe anything's going to come of it. If nothing came after, we're in 2022, nothing came of January 6th as of now, as of yet, what's gonna change? and I just don't see Merrick Garland, not an attorney, but I really don't believe anything's going to happen. I just don't.
I mean, and I can understand that feeling. I really can. I have shared that feeling for a long time, and I don't know that anything that we've seen so far has really changed my opinion on that. Like, I think in the back of my mind, there's a part of me that hopes that what's happening, like the fact that it took the committee this long to get to this point, right, where they did all these interviews and they did all this investigation, and now they're just kind of presenting all of this, all of the facts
to the
of
American
everything.
public. Yeah. OJ killed his wife.
Yeah.
Period. And because he had really good attorneys, OJ Simpson is not in prison.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is no different. Like I really like. I'm not trying to minimize. I guess I'm calling the bluff. What John Stewart was it? No, what was his name? John Oliver, right? Mm-hmm. I'm just not a big guy on people that bluff. Like, say I won't moments happen once in a lifetime. And the minute that you let somebody like punk you like that and you continue to let them do it, they'll do it again. I don't think the Republican Party as a whole understands the gravity of what they've allowed into our system. And I just, it's not about hope for me. It's like, no, it's the track record. As a former registered Republican, I do not believe the GOP is concerned with anything more than their ability to stay in seats of influence in this country.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Like, I don't, and I think part of it is because they've recognized that a chunk of their voter base also doesn't care. That it's not
a chunk.
Well,
the chunk they're playing to, Chris, is the chunk that actually wins elections. They're playing on the margins.
Yeah. Well, that's that chunk.
But let's call it for what it is. They figured out the math of how to win elections. I think that I still believe that as far as national elections go, Republicans have it's going to get more difficult. Mm-hmm. Because that's not where the majority of the country's at. But they can manipulate state and local elections enough to where they stay in influence, and that's dangerous.
Yeah, and that's something that I had come up on, just something I had seen on the internet earlier today, I think, or maybe it was yesterday. Somebody talking about how they live in Florida and they voted for 24 years, and not a single one of the politicians that they have voted for has ever won their election because of the gerrymandering that occurs there. And that at some point, like, it really just makes you feel like, what's the point? You know, like, why am I continuing to participate in this if ultimately my voice is meaningless, you know? Like, no matter how hard I try or how much I want these other people to be in, you know, these positions of influence to be able to make change or to do things in a different way, like, the system is so rigged against that ever happening that I might as well just give up. And I don't even think that was the original intent of gerrymandering, but it's for the GOP, or really anybody that's choosing to gerrymander, I think it's a delicious side dish that goes along with it, right? It's like, not only are we already winning elections, but we're also discouraging people who don't vote for us to participate from participating in elections going forward, because we've convinced them that their voice doesn't count. Their vote doesn't count.
The seat that turned in the special election in Texas was won because there was only a 15% turnout, right?
Yeah, there was less than 20% of New Hanover County that turned out for the primaries in May last month. I was devastated, honestly. Not surprised, but just like, you've got to be kidding me that less than 1 out of every 5 people that you see on the streets that's of legal voting age decided to participate. Why?
But So it tells me that January 6th, it's important. Like, I remember watching that, and I think I was just a moment of disbelief watching it live. It was shocking.
You called me.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, dude, what's up? And you're like, what do you mean, what's up? They're in the Capitol. I'm like, who's in the Capitol? And you're like, Trump's people. And I'm like, what? And you're like, they stormed the Capitol. They're in there. I was working on something with my dad. We had gone to the dump to drop stuff off, and I hadn't tuned into the news all day long because as much noise and everything has been made about it, I didn't actually think that something like that would happen in this country. Like, and there it was, front and center.
There are now two memory markers of, like, show me what's up or say I want moments in this country where I just can't believe that we've allowed these things to happen. One would be 9/11, and secondly would be January 6th, where they're so egregious that, with the exception of, like, we did decide to do something. Now, granted, what we did with 9/11 was, it's arguably not.
Might not have been the right response, Dang you, Afghanistan! We're gonna show you by invading Iraq.
And just it goes against this notion that I actually saw a representative from Russia that actually said something I've been repeating. Are we really that exceptional?
Yeah.
I mean, we let these same, like, atrocities happen in our country at various levels. We literally let just the thought of overturning an election foment in our country, and the people that this wannabe dictator, like, stormed the Capitol, and nothing's happened. But we are the same country that says, oh, screw Chavez, oh, screw Castro, oh, screw Putin, oh, screw
Xi Jinping. Yeah.
Ping. Yeah. I mean, these are things where it's like, we're hypocrites.
Yeah.
So I don't think anything's going to come out of January 6th. I don't think Attorney General Garland's got the cojones,
the chutzpah
to do anything about this. I don't think that this country is okay with, like, 13% or I would say it's probably more like 8% of MAGA supporters just being sad little puppies and like rolling over and playing dead. I don't think we're that, because that same 8%, 13%, depending on whichever poll we're talking about, those people are the same ones that flip elections.
Yeah.
In just enough districts to where it kind of matters at a federal level, but not so much at a state level. So, yeah, I don't know. Trump says on Truth Social, he's, like, really using Truth Social now.
Yeah, it's amazing that when the thing goes up for sale, all of a sudden he's all over it.
Ivanka was checked out. She wasn't paying attention. She's,
She was just trying to be nice to Attorney General Barr. Yeah, okay, because I'm sure she really cares. But, like, I mean, he would eat his own children at this point if it meant something good would happen for him.
Yeah,
like, and that's the guy that these people fawn over. That's what I don't get. I just don't get it. But I do get it. No, well, I do. No, I do because I'm trying to remember where it was, or what it was that I was watching. But it was basically the idea that it's not that I agree with what he stands for. It's that he doesn't like the same people I don't like. And that's what gets them voting for him. It's like just because he claims to be a Republican and rails against Democrats, that's all it took to get these people on his side. And it doesn't matter how many horrible things he's done or how many buffoonish mistakes he's made. It all comes down to he doesn't like the people I don't like.
Well, this country is like this country has decided that we needed an elected class that to rule us because we're not smart enough to do it ourselves. Kudos
there might
to
be
Liz
some
Cheney.
truth to the second part of that, but
Sure.
not for all of
kudos
us,
to-
but at least for some of us.
Kudos to Liz Cheney for sticking to her guns, and it's not about the political disagreements I may or may not have with her.
Yeah.
But to not even take a cheap shot at what is Trump's former campaign's manager's name?
Stepien.
Stepien. There we go.
Yeah.
This guy's running a campaign against her.
Yep.
And she did not didn't flinch. That's
No, and
badass to me.
I think you make an excellent point that I don't have to agree with everything a politician says or does in terms of the way that they vote. Like, we've talked about this before. We might like Joe Biden a whole lot better than we like Donald Trump, but that doesn't mean that we're like, Joe Biden's doing everything right, you know? Like, there are plenty of things that we've sat here and criticized Joe Biden and a lot of the Democrats for, like not getting shit done before it hits the fan, you know? And Liz Cheney is kind of along those same lines where it's like, yeah, I may have a ton of issues with her politics or her, where she stands on certain issues, but there is something to be said for the fact that her and one other senator are, willing to sit here and basically put their political careers on the line.
Because online, you're taking the photo instantaneously, you're putting the photo out there on the line.
Is it online?
Yeah, I'm putting my photos out on the line and I'm creating an exchange.
Yeah, that's Instagram.
But mine's more of a social sharing on the line that's happening.
Online. Quick interjection. When you keep saying on the line, you do mean online.
In order to try and do what they feel is the right thing.
Well, the problem with the GOP, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, is that they understand their shelf life. They are a dying political party, but they're also trying to grab a little bit of a lifeline from the MAGA movement.
Yep.
I don't think they want that. I think at the end of the day, they're going to realize, that's how you build a Nazi party.
Well, and it's also how you speed up the death of your own party. They're not that that's necessarily
it's actually not a good thing. You want opposition in government,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But you also don't want the extremes to be the
loudest voices in the room.
the loudest. Yeah, that's weird.
It is. It's really weird. I still am often kind of just confounded by the fact that there isn't more of a voice from the not extremes.
You're not missing the voice. It's that they're getting drowned out by here's what you have to do. Don't just watch the hearings. Watch the pregame, right? Pick a channel, whether it's MSNBC, CNN, or Fox probably won't play it.
C-SPAN.
What? C-SPAN. Well, C-SPAN won't do a pregame, which is actually unique. But watch the pregame. This is where you get the academics or the professional journalists, which I'm just losing so much respect for. Every time they open their mouths,
Yeah.
their narrative drowns out what normal people are saying. I am so tired of hearing about 84% of Americans believe in common sense gun laws. If that were true, why are we still talking about gun laws? It's not true. I find it very hard to believe that these polls they spout out with numbers are relative and or accurate to anything that represents what people want and or believe.
We asked 17 people on this one street corner in New York City what they thought about gun laws, and 84% of them say they're in favor of common sense gun laws. Therefore, the entire American population, 84% of them believe in common sense gun laws. I know that it's not that bad, but it's probably not that far off.
Yeah, and I told you, we talked about last week, 10 of my friends, we couldn't even get through a conversation.
Yeah.
And we all said, regardless of political ideology, we all said the same thing. So I think the polls that people are talking about are these they're their own echo chamber, where they're stroking themselves so hard they believe that people care what they believe. I don't care what Jake Tapper says. I don't care what Don Lemon says. I don't care what any of those talking heads say.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant to me. Your job as a journalist and I'm going to tie it back to January 6th. Your job as a journalist is to be objective and give me the facts, not your opinion. I really don't care about your opinion. Yeah. And where they cross the line, just without any regard, is their projection of what we should feel about January 6th. I don't need your pregame. I can tell you as an American citizen, last year, within 30 to 45 days after January 6th, Donald J. Trump should have been in prison. Period. End of story.
Or at least charged and awaiting trial.
Sure. Yeah, however that works out.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
that is everything about that was seditious. Everything about that was demagoguery. Everything about that was a wannabe dictator. Everything about, like, if we're going to forgive him for all the other things that he may have done wrong, whether it be the summer of 2020 where he was like, hey, shoot him with guns, shoot him with rubber, whatever. Like, okay, well, I'll give you a pass there. But when this clown can actually say, hey, Mike, what you ought to do is just say Arizona, Pennsylvania, your votes so count. Hit that gavel.
Why they haven't charged him in the state of Georgia for election interference, and the call that they have where he's recorded talking to Raffensperger and being like, find me, all I need you to do is find me 11,000 however many votes. That's all I need. Just do that and I win the election. And it's like, that should be enough, right? Like, what more do you really need?
Well, I think globally you don't want to discredit the prestige of the American presidency.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's
nobody cares.
Already been tainted enough.
Yeah.
With everything that's happened since that call, and I mean, yeah, I agree that, like, ultimately the fact that this dude is still, like, moving about freely, doing his thing, continuing to raise money, continuing to threaten to run for office again.
I hope he does.
Continuing to endorse people. I agree. There's a fear. There's an inherent fear somewhere that they're gonna, like, fuck it up. That, like.
Well, Democrats are incompetent.
Well, and that's part of it, right? I mean, like, you think that if the shoe was on the other foot, Republicans would still be sitting here, like, debating whether or not to charge a Democratic president, a former Democratic president, with treason and sedition and, election interference and election whatever? Like, no.
It'd be done.
Yeah.
I mean,
they would have reinstituted firing squads just for that.
This country went, like, full on for Bill Clinton getting brains. Like, it's like I'm being for real. Like, yeah. No disrespect to anybody involved in that. Don't really care. Did it affect Clinton doing his job? Probably don't know.
Might have made him do his job better. Just thinking more clearly.
Who knows? I don't know. But my
point being, clarity.
My point being is that we have this hypocrisy in this country, and Democrats are just incompetent. Like, this is the party that says Latinx. 90% of my time is around Hispanics. I've never heard anybody say Latinx.
I did. I was, like, hard eye roll in Miss Marvel episode 2 when the stupid cop.
Was she Latina? I'm sorry, I'm supposed to say Latinx now, right?
Oh, that's TV.
Yeah.
I threw up, like, a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
It's like, I mean, this is the country, this is the party that says, we understand the working class person. No, you don't. Like,
how could you? How long has it been since any of you had to work other than some cushy job or being a politician?
But like, to be fair, I don't challenge a person's station in life. I think that's the wrong argument. I think the argument should be made that no, let's look at realistic things we can do, right?
But I'm talking about like this the belief that they're part of this elected class.
Well, sure. Somebody asked me the other day, when did it become normal that people think they should make $15-20 an hour to work in fast food? And my answer was, and I don't think I listened to like all of their question, was the 90s. Right? Like, we started this whole like shitstorm in the 90s. And I don't know how we did it, but you know, college didn't match wages didn't match college, and we've just ballooned that whole problem since the 90s. It started to show up in the late 80s, we ballooned it in the 90s, and we can't keep up. But I still didn't listen to their question, right?
Yeah.
At the end of their question, I should have actually said, oh, but some people are comfortable where they are. Their question was, why is, you know, like, working in fast food, how do you call that a career? And I'm thinking about equating wages with, like, upward mobility financially, which is that wasn't the question. But then I had to remember, I said, oh, actually somebody told me that when I was like, 23. Look, some people don't want to get promoted. They're content with their lives, and you need those people to keep this whole system moving.
Yeah.
And I've just learned over time that that's okay. Democrats, like, equate everybody to wanting to make six figures a year, or like, live in a, X neighborhood and have access to this and that.
Let's not have janitors anymore because nobody wants to do that job, right? Let's not have garbage men anymore because that's a crappy job. Which ultimately, what you're really doing is looking down your nose at these people and the jobs that they do and saying, you could be doing so much better, and we're here to help you achieve that.
It's not reality for a vast majority of people, and that's completely okay. And we have, and January 6th is a reflection of that. Liz Cheney's doing a great job of presenting the case. Actually, I Googled it. She is an attorney, right?
Yeah.
So she's not shooting from the hip. If she wanted to present a better case, like, she would have to try very, very hard.
Yeah.
I don't think Congressman Benny, whatever his last name is, Thompson, is an attorney, because I couldn't find anything to the fact. I think he's a very good public servant, but I do believe that Liz Cheney is building a case. With an unbiased opinion, if that's the case she's presenting, looking at it objectively, and there's nothing that happens, it proves a couple things. Merrick Garland was the Attorney General's position is useless. Number one, the DOJ is completely useless. Mm-hmm. It kind of ranks up there with the Federal Trade Commission for me.
Yeah. And the SEC.
And the IRS and the SEC. So that means that proves that point for me. And then secondly, that there's no reason not to have lack of confidence in our government. Because if this is the case that she's presenting so well, if the Republican Party said that we don't want it to be an independent commission, we don't want it to be bipartisan unless we put hacks on there that can't look at it objectively, and we can't get a resolution, there is no reason any American citizen should not have lower confidence in our government's ability to do anything.
So I guess I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree. In fact, I agree, but I have a question to follow that up, which is, then what do we do if that happens? Like, where do we go from there? Is there anywhere to go? I mean, I look at, we talked about a little bit earlier, like gerrymandering, right? How do we solve that problem? Because it's not something that we as individual voters can vote on, right? Like, in my mind, gerrymandering should not be legal. Like, this should not be a thing. Like, to just redraw districts because you're in charge.
I think at some level, Republicans understand they understand that there's things about what their party believes in that have been exposed since Trump has been president, like, you know, white supremacy, racism, et cetera, misogyny, hate crimes, all those things that have like ballooned in the last like 5 or 6 years. It's going to bite them in the butt. They cannot, and I forget the number I said before, but I want to say the next 10 to 14 years, they cannot as a party survive like demographic shifts. Even though there's a lot of heinous things happening and crappy racist things happening, they're not going to survive 10 to 14 years. It's mathematically impossible. They're going to become like more fringe than what they are. So now, does that escalate violence? Yeah. Possibly, right? Does it escalate people that are feeling that sense of loss? Possibly, but I can almost guarantee you that it's running dry. Gerrymandering cannot, like the number of states that are in like the South that continuously have Democratic governors, but GOP-led state houses is going to dwindle. Georgia's
purple state,
right? I'm not sure how purple, but
yeah,
it's a telltale sign of the demographics and the math are running against a certain philosophy and ideology in this country.
So then is it just a matter of waiting them out?
I mean, you can force them out, but you have to have the balls to do it.
Which
right?
we know the Democrats don't have.
But neither do Republicans. Forget MAGA Republicans,
yes.
But neither.
Yeah.
Republicans in general they're playing the short game with this percentage of people that got invigorated to vote with Trump.
But they don't see the long tail effects of it.
Yeah. So for them, the headwinds are like, oh, if we get this, if we work with this 8 to 13%, depending on the polls, we can win elections. Well,
yeah, for another 2-3 cycles.
Yeah.
And not at the national level.
It's not going to be long-standing. I mean, they're playing great chess. Like, let's get the Secretary of State, because that way we can hold up an election in a court of law. We'll probably lose, but we're going to keep people riled up. Well, that only goes so far. Like, you just cannot... You can't sustain, like, chaos without irreparable damages or just a revolt.
That was where I was going with it, was that's where I think that they ultimately miss the mark, is that while they are mistaking the Democrat politicians' ineptness and lack of testicular fortitude for the same characteristics existing amongst the voter base. And I don't think that holds true. I'm not saying that like everybody's a bunch of violent warmongers here amongst the people, but if you disenfranchise people's votes enough and do it as blatantly as they seem to be willing to do it, like, I can't imagine it takes long before people just say, all right, fine. If voting you out isn't an option, we will take other, much more drastic means.
I've said this time and time again. Cuba doesn't happen in the United States of America. Like, Fidel Castro does not exist in the States. Hugo Chavez does not exist in the United States. You know why? He would die. Like, there's a limit, I believe, in this country, intolerant of just insanity. And I think that it's still woven within our DNA as a country to where those things do not happen. Trump happened because it was a fluke. It's a test of say I won't in this country. I don't think it goes on. I think that we'll have probably at best a continuous inoperable Congress But you see, states are still operating,
Yeah.
right? They're still pressing these stupid abortion laws. They're still pressing these stupid gun laws. At the federal level, that's the dog and pony show. Nobody really gives a shit because I live in Alabama, or I live in California, or I live in Montana. Nobody cares. Nobody really cares about what happens at the federal level. But the talking heads would love to make you think and believe that's true.
But that's where everything happens.
Right, and it doesn't. Like, Roe versus Wade is going to impact Mississippi before it impacts North Carolina. Right? Roe versus Wade is going to impact maybe Wisconsin or Indiana before it impacts New York or California. Here's what I would wager to see if this is how you test this country. And I know I say this and you say this to me and my kids say it to me. Well, everybody can't afford to move. Leave Mississippi. What happens? And I was just thinking about this.
Yeah.
You say it can't happen, but I remember also after the Civil War, a lot of people that were slaves, they went north. I remember during segregation, a lot of people, they migrated to the north.
I mean, shit, was with the Great Migration in the 1960s and 70s, where people fled the South and moved to California, they moved out west, they moved up north.
Yep. So we keep saying that, we can't, where are people going to work? We'll figure that out. But I challenge you this. I challenge this country with this. It's happened before. We figure out a way to, those states figure out a way to be like, yeah, that didn't work out very well.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Well, that
and then when things
gives me some
when things
glimmer
settle
of
down
hope.
and people are a little bit more welcoming, people move back, and now we got Atlanta. I mean, no disrespect to Atlanta, but they're not the new Harlem. That just crap. I did it again. Oh, did I do it again?
I can.
That just burns me the wrong. It rubs me the wrong way. But I still believe, like, look, if that state's not showing you love, leave the state. You know, Texas is, if Texas is like okay with kids getting killed, leave Texas.
Yeah.
What happens to Texas then?
Yeah.
We don't have, as currently in this country, we don't have the balls we had back in the days. That's what I'm saying.
You're not wrong. I mean, like, and it's not like a greatest generation kind of thing or any, you know, like, I think it's just, it's been a slow, steady move to where we are right now. But I think it's like part of that is true, and at the same time, I think when push comes to shove, people will fight back.
Sure. I don't disagree. But I think being complacent is
Thank you.
is
That's the word I
dangerous.
was looking for earlier.
And I think that January 6th is just for me, it's like, Liz Cheney can't present the facts any clearer than what she is. And the whole committee cannot. I don't think anything's going to happen with it. I mean, look at this. Like, seriously, man, you got the president going to Saudi Arabia. What's the issue with Saudi Arabia? Is it 9/11 or is it Khashoggi? Because I can almost guarantee, like, just from my memory.
Just general human rights violations.
Who cares? Like, Biden talked mad tough against Saudi Arabia.
We were going to, in fact, make them pay the price and make them, in fact, the pariah that they are. There's very little social redeeming value in the present government in Saudi Arabia.
Like, before he got elected,
Yep.
when Khashoggi or got murdered or whatever, like, the only people that were upset about it were journalists. But people get killed and murked in Saudi Arabia every day. We're not defending them, but because of journalists,
That's
got
crossing the
murdered?
line.
Yeah, that's where we're gonna, like, draw the line there.
Well, I mean, I think we've talked about this before, not specifically this, but it's what people identify with, right? Like, the journalists identify with another journalist out there
Sure.
supposedly doing his job. And so when that guy gets killed, then all of a sudden it's, oh my God, that could be me. You know, that could be my friends. That could be my colleague. And it's like, yeah, okay, well, you know, the same is true for every other person that gets killed to a certain degree, right? Like, yeah, it's...
Lower gas prices. When I go to Saudi Arabia, oh, you can't go there because of this and that. Is it because of 9/11? Is it? I mean, sure, I'm not discounting 9/11, but like at some level, like we got to figure out our bed partners, right? Is it because of this journalist? And that's what journalists are real. That's the narrative they keep saying. After Washington Post journalists, like, who cares where he worked at? Like, this guy died. Like, you guys are trying to make me feel more sympathetic for this guy than the other child or man or woman that probably were murdered there also?
Yeah.
At the same hands of the same person?
I mean, journalists are the best of us.
Well, you know, for gas prices, this country doesn't know how to suffer.
Well, that too. I mean,
I just put a buck of gas in my car the other day. Did not complain.
Yeah.
I was like, yo,
yeah,
this is where we're at.
I drive around and I look at gas prices and I'm like, yeah, that's higher than it was, 6 months ago. But does it stop me from buying gas? No. Does it stop me from running the errands that I need to run? No. Like, and, maybe that's a complacent way to look at it. I don't know. I don't think so.
It's not complacency. It's not. It's actually courage. Like that's what I would challenge anybody that doesn't like gas is a necessity, got it. But where I would fight for lower prices at is food before gas.
Sure.
Like, I'd rather pay higher prices in gas, but make sure that people that don't make as much money as my household are paying like an extra $20 or 20 cents for crushed tomatoes, right? Or an extra $1 or 75 cents for milk, or an extra $3 for eggs. Like, come on, this country's got to figure, like, the priorities are all wonked out. It's like, and I'm not saying gas should be more expensive. I'm saying, like, yeah, but let's look at the CPI and make sure. Let's look at things that are going to, like, nourishment is more important than fuel. Why is the president writing a letter that's not going to do crap to gas companies? Calling out Shell. So you guys better produce more oil. Or how about we just figure out a way to we have oil reserves as a country. Yo, flood the market with that. See what happens.
What if we lower the gas taxes in each of the states?
Sure, or take the leases back from these companies.
Until make them earn it.
How many of those companies are actually American companies? And if they're not, if they're foreign owned, it's like, nah, we can't do that. There's a lot of things that we just don't have, and I don't know the how doable that is that quickly, but I'm just saying
there's a lot of options on the table, but nobody wants to talk about that stuff. It's all focused on the very talking point issues, and that's, I got into a disagreement with somebody on Instagram today over this. No, I mean, this dude commented on the video I posted of the Trump RV that was rolling through Wilmington and was like, if you don't know what freedom is, you need to go back to school. And I'm like, all right, I asked a legitimate question, could you give me one example of how your freedom is different now under President Biden than it was under Trump? And the person never responded. This dude came in to chime in with this, and I'm like, it's amazing how when you ask somebody to give a simple example, one single example, their response is never to actually provide a single example, but rather to challenge you to go figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, I'm not doing your homework for you.
Exactly. And then he brought up the Keystone Pipeline. He brought up, a lack of drilling in Alaska and the Gulf of Mexico and all these other things. And I was like, all right, Keystone Pipeline doesn't affect local gas prices or national gas supply. They have over 9,000 permits that are currently available to them. They're not drilling in any of them, and that's because they're thoroughly enjoying these higher gas prices that they can charge with a lower supply that they're producing. Lest we forget that during the pandemic, Donald Trump threatened OPEC with sanctions unless they reduce the amount of oil that they were producing because gas prices were getting too low in this country.
Right.
Okay, like, and then the guy accused me of driving an electric car. And I'm like, did you even read the caption? It said, I saw this while filling up my car with gas. Like, if I have an electric car and I'm filling it with gas, then I'm going to die because I literally filled the passenger compartment with it.
And you can't argue with stupid.
No, you really
I hate calling
can't.
people stupid.
Well,
I
okay,
hate
you
calling
can
people
argue with stupid, but it doesn't. You can't argue with. It's not even ignorance. It's like a willful ignoring of. Like, you can't argue with people who don't speak the same language as you, is what it ultimately boils down to.
Whatever Trump excites in people, it's amazing.
It is.
Right?
And
But it's also
it's a little
nothing
scary.
It's nothing different than Adolf Hitler. It's nothing different.
Okay,
than,
but that's where it becomes scary to me. It's like, I agree that
we get to be history's guinea pigs, right? So however we respond to this moment, 30, 40 years down the line, they're going to say, why didn't they get it?
Yeah.
That's what I'm starting to feel. We are flirting with that say I won't moment, and we're just not, as a country, we're not capable of doing anything different because we don't have the courage to do something different. And we believe that we are exceptional, and we're not. We're just like everybody else. We may have we may have things that we're really good at, but we're not exceptional. It just does not exist. It's not true. Our World War II hustle that we took the whole globe on, we're paying that back right now.
Yep.
History's got a long memory, and we're just like, we're getting caught up in the hustle, and we think and we believe, that things don't affect us, and we don't have we literally are talking this exceptional game as we literally we flirted with a wannabe dictator wanting to just stay in office. Good Lord, come on.
Yeah, because God forbid he admit that he actually lost something once, ever.
He's a loser.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to, man. He's a piece of shit.
Anything else you
But
want to
yeah,
add?
so I what?
I was just asking if there was anything else you wanted to add.
No, I just think January 6th is like it's going to be an intellectual pursuit for the country. And I think those are boring. So if we're not going to do anything about it, let's just stop. It's not worth it. It's like a John Oliver moment. Like, seriously, like, no offense to Mr. Oliver, but he bluffed, yo. Like, I told you he was bluffing.
Yeah.
That's what makes me, like, and I just don't respect him for that. It's like, dude, if that's true, if those things are true, do something with it. I dare you. I just don't think people are that bold. I told somebody the other day, I made a comment. I'm like, yeah, you're right, like, whatever. They're like, oh, you wouldn't say it to my dad? I'm like, yeah, I would. I said, you don't know me very well. Like, I totally would. Like, if that was my thought, then I would definitely say that. Like, it's not beyond me to say what I'm thinking.
I can vouch for that.
I don't think we as a country have that. We're not built like that. We're like we peaked at high school. I don't know when high school was for us as a country. World War II? Then we peaked at high school.
That's what I love about these high school girls, man. I get older, they stay the same age.
Yes, they do. Go.
Yes, they do.
Like, I love the country I live in. Don't get it twisted, but I really think we peaked in high school. We're just not who we say we are in public anymore.
Well,
and
then maybe this is our midlife crisis, and we went out and we thought we bought a Porsche, but it turns out we bought a lemon, and we're gonna sell that lemon, and we're gonna make some damn lemonade instead. I don't know. That was a weird metaphor.
We'll see.
But
yeah, that was like, again, I do love my country. My family has served in the military. I am an American, and I acknowledge the fact I'm an American. But I also think that sometimes our ego is just like ballooning.
No, we drink our own Kool-Aid far too often.
Yeah, like we put our finger in that little slurp on that joint,
Yeah.
and it's just like, come on, man, this is embarrassing.
You know what they say?
This
You
is
drink
like
enough Kool-Aid, you get a Jim Jones.
It's really embarrassing, and I hope that, I'll give kudos to, Adam Kinzinger and actually the whole committee. I think that they put some very impeccable facts on display. I just don't think anything's gonna happen. I'll be shocked if something happens. I will apologize and say, "Yo, my bad." But I don't think Merrick Garland's built that way. I don't think that. He's the only one that can press criminal charges.
Yeah.
I don't think our representatives in Congress, especially the Senate, are built that way. Because if I understand correctly, the Senate could take the recommendations of the committee and make a legal thing. So
Yeah.
I don't think the Supreme Court is built that way. I just think there's a bunch of punk moves that happens in this country, and it's not impressive. And I'll end it with this. So McDonald's pulled out of 850 stores out of Russia. And you know what they didn't do? They didn't flinch. They opened 200 stores with the same menu, with excluding the Big Mac and something else. I don't remember what else they took off of it.
Yeah.
But it tells you, like no offense, it just says you guys aren't all that special. Because what we didn't do when McDonald's pulled out of that country was pull back the rights, kind of lock down the ingredients. Because everybody has said the chicken nuggets taste the same way. The cheeseburgers, they taste and look the same. It's just like we're believing our own hype, man. Like, it's crazy. They even copy the logo for the most part.
Yeah.
But McDonald's pulled out. They were like, "Yo, we're out."
Except
dude
for
is gonna open.
we're not.
Yeah, we're really. We left you guys enough just to figure it out.
Yep.
They even kept the barbecue sauce and marked it out. And I'm like, yo, you guys are savage for that.
It's not sweet and sour sauce. It's sour and sweet.
Yeah. So I don't know. I still love this country. I acknowledge the fact I'm an American, citizen. But it's like, man, don't believe your own hype, man, because that's how you get sucker punched. I mean, that's how you get your card pulled, and somebody's just like, "Nah, you're a chump." And I think we peaked in high school, man. We are that guy in high school or girl in high school that was like, I was so popular, and then you're out in the world and nobody talks to you.
Thank God I didn't peak in high school. And I still don't think I've peaked. Like, I'm just kind of like riding low the whole time. Like,
on that, we're super glad you joined us, and the big rant is that this is something that I've been thinking about, and I don't have a solution for it, but I hope that more people talk about it. Maybe you can talk to your local and state representatives. Maybe you get a chance to talk to your federal representatives, because our voices do need to be heard. And I just find it very disturbing that we have let this manufactured elected class speak for this country. We've let these manufactured classes, whether that be media, entertainment, news or journalism or whatever, media's it's a big spectrum, but they don't speak for the average person. So I would just implore people to kind of step out of that bubble a little bit. What can we do? Ask different questions. Talk to your friends, family, peers, colleagues. Let's have different conversations. You can catch us on a lot of the things.
A lot of the things.
We're on YouTube. Just search for the Chris and Andre Show. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play or Google Podcast now. Yeah. if you have any comments, or if you have a topic you think that you'd like us to talk about, or if you want to be a guest in the podcast, please send us an email to comments@chrisandandreshow.com. You can always find me never on social media, but more than likely on email at andre@chrisandandreshow.com.
You can find me on Instagram and Facebook. I check our profiles for that. I'm no longer on Twitter, and still my life is so much better for it. Or you can email me at chris@chrisandandreshow.com.
And we really do appreciate people hanging out with us, and we have a fun time doing this. We're not promoted. We're not paid to do this. We just have good conversations. It helps us to make each other better people. And I don't have the answers to everything, but I do have an opinion, and sometimes I'm wrong, but most of the time I'm right. So, if you'd like to, please hit the like, subscribe, and especially click that notification button. We'd really appreciate it. We're trying to build a community. You can always find more content at chrisandandreshow.com. As always, I'm Andre.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you next time.
Hey guys, it's Chris from the Chris and Andre Show here. Just wanted to say thanks for checking out our show. We hope you enjoyed it. If you would, subscribe, like, make sure to hit the notification bell so you get alerts when we post new videos, and leave a comment with your favorite part of the most recent episode that you watched. We'll see you on the next one.